What's up, everybody? It's the Tabletop Tyrant, and today we're going to be doing a beginner's guide to the Grand Cathay army. Let's see if I can still do this and remember how. So, it's been a hot minute since you guys have seen me. A lot has changed. I'm back in school, and with that, I tend to take it a bit seriously, so I have to study my butt off. So let's kind of get into that. I'll clear you guys up at the end if you guys want to hear, but let's dive into Cathay. Now, I'm going to go over some oopsies from the community and my own personal idea. The army special rules, the lore of the yin and yang, picking one of my each from each lore, the Armoury of Cathay, the Cathayan Sentinel and his upgrades, followed with starting an army, key units to add, and my conclusion. Now, a quick caveat before we get things going. If you hear any type of noise, I have a family and I have kids that love making noise, so that is probably what you'll be hearing. Now, let's kind of get into this. So let me kind of give a little disclaimer here. I am first and foremost a Warriors of Chaos player. Cathay, not my primary, not my secondary, and with them being a new army, there's no real frame of reference from previous editions. So I'm going into this really green, and I've played a few games, gotten my hands kind of wet with them, and I think I have a decent idea to begin with, but I would not say I'm going to have a very advanced take on how to maybe take this to the competitive level. This is for people that maybe want to get into it and get started in the army. Now, first, I sat on Cathay for two reasons. One, my life is hella busy. And two, I kind of wanted to wait for the hype to die down. With all that, with the influencers all shilling this stuff and getting everyone excited, you know, the last thing, and I same thing with the Horse Heresy, I didn't want to just give my first opinions while everyone's up in arms. I wanted to kind of sit on it, chew it over, mull it over. However, unlike the Horse Heresy, I think Grand Cathay came out in a really good flavor, whereas the Horse Heresy did not. But that is for a completely different video. Now, what I consider to be the oopsies in my book, or what I think they missed the mark when it comes to the Grand Army of Cathay, the Arcane Journal. Now, most of the Arcane Journals we got, now granted, we did get their main list breakdown in the Ravening Hordes and Forces of Fantasy, but it would have been nice to see other formations. However, based on how little we kind of got, I can understand why we didn't get a lot of formations in this. We just got the main breakdown. Two, one of the biggest gripes I've seen is people saying Cathay is OP and overpowered. While yes, it can definitely be a really good army, I don't think it's because the army came out super broken. I just think they have very little to their range, so there's nothing to do but take the good stuff. Where Warriors of Chaos, and I use it because I have the most reference with it, you have Chaos Knights for core, you have Chosen, you have regular Chaos Warriors, you have Forsaken, you have Marauders, you got Troll, Spawn, all this stuff. Cathay, you really don't. You have the bare bones of an army, and I imagine they're going to come in at a later date, maybe provide some sort of update for them, bring out another named character, and then bring out some more units. That's what I see on the horizon in the future. Now let's get into the brass tacks. My last piece I want to say about this is, say you play older editions, you don't really mess with the old world, hey, that's cool. I think you can tweak these rules in the Arcane Journal to fit previous editions, but also too, in the Tamarcon campaign book, it does say if you want to play Cathay, to proxy it with the Empire, and I think that's a pretty good proxy. It'd be like a video game reskin for the young kids out there. So if that's the way you want to go, you play old editions, just proxy it in the Empire book, and I'm sure you'll be fine. Now let's kind of go into the army special rules. So with the special rules, we have Celestial Forged Armor, we have the Mastery of the Elemental Winds, the Will of the Dragons, and the Elemental Winds. Now these are all pretty decent. Celestial Forged Armor is going to confer a ward save of whatever the number X is on the Shungung. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that. It's a 5, so that means you have a 5-up ward save. Mastery of the Elements. This is one that's kind of situational. I wouldn't really necessarily say like I'd go out of my way to use it, but it's once per turn, a wizard in your army that is also within 6 inches of another wizard may add +1 to casting. Again, pretty situational. I don't tend to keep my wizards this close, and +1 to casting isn't really something I'd want to risk to get a spell off when I could just take a level 3 or 4 and have a good chance of getting it off as it is. Will of the Dragons, re-roll field panic test when a friendly unit is destroyed within 6 inches or when it is fled through. That's good. That's good. I can't really see a unit getting fled through. Destroyed maybe, but 6 inches, again, still situational. Keep your stuff spaced out, and I think you'll be fine. But again, good to have for a new player that maybe isn't familiar with deployment or how to get that done. I think that's great. Now, the elemental winds. During the command subphase, roll a d6. That roll will determine what happens. On the 1 to 3, you get the yang. On a 4 to 6, you get the yin. And to my knowledge, this applies even if you took that lore. So if you just have the will of the dragons, you will get these benefits. Now, for the yang, you get an increased dispel range and a buff to enchantment by 3 inches. So you can dispel an additional 3 inches, making that, I believe, a wizard level 3 would put you at a 27-inch dispel radius. It's been a little bit of a minute, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And you'll get +1 to movement and +1 to initiative. Now, that's good because your cavalry will be movement 8, which is nice, but, you know, I like what happens when you get the yin. In contrast with the yin, you increase your hex and missile spells by 3 inches. You are +1 weapon skill and leadership, and this applies to all eligible models with Will of the Dragon. So things like Gate Masters, Magisters, Jade Warriors, Jade Lancers, and again, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but the Shungyung Lords will all get these benefits. Now, that's really dope because we're going to take a little look over here to the Lore of the Yang. Now, Lore of the Yang comes with 3 spells. You randomly generate your spells based off the lore that you can take, and then you can swap 1 spell out with one of these. Now, I would take the Might of Heaven and Earth. I'm going to go into why it's my favorite. Now, this one stacks with the Elemental of Winds. The spell is an enchantment spell and has a value of 9 or 12. Now, what do I mean by that? You can choose to affect all units within the caster's command range, aka leadership bubble, and it gives you flaming attacks, +1 weapon skill, and strength. So, that's really good because it's going to bring that strength 3 warrior to strength 4. Nice. And if you get the yin, you'll be +2 to your weapon skill, taking that Jade Warrior to weapon skill 6, which, again, nice. Which means you'll be hitting most things on 3s, if not, you know. And then they'll be hitting you on 5s, best case 4s. So I think that's really good to have. Really great for infantry and your lancers. It's going to stack really nice. And you want that strength 4 because you are just a regular human at the end of the day. So you want to get that nice to wound roll in. Now, going with the Lore of the Yin, the Accursed Mirror is really dope. It's a hex spell, it has a range of 15, and it goes off on a 9. And that unit that's affected by this, if they roll a hit roll of 1 in the shooting or combat phase, they take a Strength 3 AP 1 hit. But that's not the kicker because you can target a unit that's in combat. So that's pretty bogus. I like it. I think it's nice. Moving on. Now, we have the Armoury of Cathay. So the Cathayan Lance is unique because I believe a regular lance is strength +2, AP 2, armor bane. But in lieu of this, you get strength +1, AP -1, but fight an extra rank. So that means you'll get that back rank of attacks, that second rank of attacks, which is pretty freaking awesome. So I kind of didn't get a chance to really roll the stats out. I'm almost curious to see like if the same amount of attacks will go through as if you had the extra strength and the extra AP. Just because you know, if you don't get that spell off, you're strength 4 rather than strength 5 on some things. So you would think that it would statistically even out whether it was the fight an extra rank or the additional strength. But again, that's just me. I'm not quite sure. Now, you have the Celestial Blade. Your strength +1, AP -1, and strikes first. Strikes first is always great. Strength +1, again, a very nice thing. You want to get that strength 4, strength 5. The Dragonfire Pistol. Now, personally, I would throw this on a Shungyung. I wouldn't throw this on anything that would join a unit because I personally hate having to remember the one model that shoots. So it's range 12, strength 5, AP 1. You get 2 shots and quick shot. Again, I would put it on a Shungyung if you're going to take it. And then we have Gunpowder Bombs and Dragonfire Bombs. Gunpowder Bombs are range 9, strength 3, armor bane 1, and if you successfully hit, you do D3 to the enemy rather than 1. And the Dragonfire Bombs are strength 4, AP 1, D3 +1 if you hit, and flaming attacks. And you have move and shoot and quick shot. So that's that. I'm not going to focus too much on that because the Cathayan Sentinel is going to be chewing up some of my time here. So, the Terracotta Sentinel is really awesome. I think it's really cool looking. I heard it's a pain in the butt to build. I personally have not built one. So, you have a slew of upgrades. You have the Terracotta Sentinel, you have the Jade Sentinel, the Obsidian, Granite, and Warpstone Sentinel. Now, for free, you get to take a regen of 6 up. You cannot complain with free. I'd buy that for $1, as the old meme would go. 20 points, you get to choose a spell from the lore of Battle Magic or Elementalism, and you count as power level 3. Now, the important thing is you get to choose what spell you take, giving it predictability. Nice. 25 points, your magic res -2. Also, if a wizard's within 12 inches, he has to take a leadership check. If he fails, he suffers -3 to his casting. If he passes, he suffers still -1. Kind of good. You can kind of get 2 of these, bubble them up, and screw people's heavy magic using armies up. I would think that would be the way to do it. If someone's taking an army that really relies on magic, take 2 of these, create a bubble, and just screw with their casters. Now, we have the Granite Sentinel. Now, this one's kind of cool. It improves the armor by 1, so you believe it's a 3-up armor save. You gain immune to multiple wounds, which is where it really comes in handy. So, things like the Ogre Blade, the Giant Blade, those big weapons people like to equip on their characters that fly around. People that put nice weapons on their characters that fly around and specifically take out monsters, they're only going to do 1 wound to you. So, it completely negates the multiple wounds, which is kind of crazy because on a lot of times we see things like this, it's just kind of subtract 1 from it or round down. But now the fact that you could do 3 wounds and it only counts as 1 gives this thing some staying power. Pretty disgusting. And the Warpstone Sentinel, while cool sounding, is 40 points, and while in base contact, this bad boy, the unit in contact with it suffers -1 to its toughness. That's pretty awesome, and it has magical attacks. Now, this bad boy's a behemoth. He is movement 6, weapon skill 5, strength and toughness 6 with 6 wounds, which is dope because you get the benefit of close order, needing to be a unit strength of 5 or more. It's initiative 3 with 3 attacks, leadership 10, and 230 points. Again, it's got some special rules, close order, getting that benefit to the +1 in combat res because he's got 6 wounds. Immune to psychology, he ain't going to be afraid of anything because he's stone. Implacable, large target, naturally he's big. Stomps D3 +1, causes terror, timber, and unbreakable. Now I want to talk about implacable for a couple seconds here. Once per game you can choose to not give ground. That's pretty good. You can choose to not run in combat if you lose. I like that, once per game. But you can also choose to give ground and save that and set people up for a charge to their flank, or set people up to open it up, or set yourself up to do a charge. Tons of things you can do with that. It allows you to take the strategy in your own hands and really make the most out of this army. Now, 2, you can also re-roll your charge roll. I don't think he needed that, but it's nice to have if you love Cathay. I think that, it was good with just picking when to give ground, but hey, who am I? And then there's 2 types of attacks you can do. You have Scything Blow, which is strength as user, AP 2. Armor Bane 1, so on 6s, you're AP 3. And extra attacks 2d3. Pretty friggin' disgusting. So 2d3 on top of your 3. And you get strikes last. But that's okay, you're initiative 3. So someone's probably going to be charging something in there. Unless it's a giant, it's probably going to be like me. I would charge a character. I'm going to hit you first anyways, but put the obsidian thing on there and only take 1 wound for multiple wounds and you should be good to go. You're definitely going to get a chance to attack back. And then there is the Deadly Strike, which is strength +1, making you strength 7, AP -4, which sucks, Killing Blow, Monster Slayer, and D3 multiple wounds. I don't know why you would not include this in an army, but there you go. It's pretty freaking savage. Now, I want to talk about magic items. I picked a couple that I thought were kind of cool. Some that I think are situational that you could use in your beginner box. The Jade Blade on a Shungyung is pretty freaking sweet. You get regen 5 up, which a weapon that gives you regen, pretty sweet. Your strength +2, AP 2, armor bane 1, and magical attack. So on a Shungyung Lord, you're going to be strength 6, hitting at AP 2 with a 5 up regen with a built-in 5 in ward save, which is just going to provide some really great survivability for your Shungyung Lord, especially if you're starting off. It's going to give you a chance to learn from mistakes. There's the Shield of Nan-Gao, which I would throw on probably a cavalry champion, or even like if you took a gate master on horse. So the cool thing is during a turn in which you are charged, gain +2 to your armor value. Now, a lot of people are like, well, that's great, but I don't really want to get charged. The kicker with the war horse is that you get countercharged. So if you are charged and you were smart enough to line yourself up with cavalry that are charging you and they're not within the bubble, Like, I think it's like 8 inches, right, to be able to countercharge, or 9. I'll post the rule up in a second. You'll be able to countercharge, which means you still count as having been charged. You get 2 charge, and you get +2 to your armor save. That's pretty freaking good for 20 points. And then there's the Banner of the Bastion, which you gain the Shield Wall special rule, which is once per game during a turn in which you were charged. A unit with the special rule that is arrayed in a close order formation and is equipped and chooses to use shields may give ground rather than fall back in good order. Great for Jade Warriors with hand weapon shield, and is 25 points, which means you can take it on their regular standard bearer. Now, we're going to talk about starting an army, and if I'm going pretty quick, I'm pressed for time in my day-to-day, so I'm trying to really make room for this. You're going to need the Arcane Journal. Arcane Journal is going to have all the rules you need for this. I think that goes without saying, and you'll also need the main rulebook, which, again, goes without saying. Now, let's kind of dive into the starter set. I didn't want to talk too much about the artillery pieces because they're both awesome. I personally like the rocket battery, but I think the cannon is a more meta way to go. But I like switching out my payloads to the rocket battery. I do the same thing with my Chaos Dwarves. They're just something fun for me. Now, let's talk about Jade Warriors. They come in at 8 points a pop with 6 points additionally for each piece of command. So, if you get a champion, that's a 6 on top of the 8 points. You get a banner bearer, 6 plus 8, so on and so forth. Now, their weapon skill 4. But they also have that special rule, Will of the Dragons. So if you get the yin, they're weapon skill 5, which is really cool. Again, use these little special rules to your abilities to stack the buffs to make these guys work for you. A lot of times I wouldn't recommend foot troops when you can take cavalry as a core unit, but these guys I think are pretty awesome, and I would probably run them in a unit of 24. You get close order, defensive stance, and Will of the Dragons, which we talked about previously. Now, defensive stance is odd. Unless you were charged in the previous turn, or you did a charge, you can reroll save rolls of 1 in the combat phase. So if you didn't charge, or were charged in the previous turn, you can reroll your armor saves of 1. Very situational, kind of weird. It kind of seemed like they wanted to give them something cool, but they didn't want it to be abused. But you can easily exploit that, like I said, with that banner that allows you to stick around. And then you can also upgrade them 0 to 1 per 1,000 points to take Drilled and Stubborn. Stubborn, I would be the first go-to, so the first time this unit is required to make a break test, they may choose not to and will automatically fall back in good order, even if the unit strength is on the winning side. Perfect for a new player, allows you to learn from mistakes, allows you to kind of see how the game mechanics work, and I would recommend this. Going into the Jade Lancers are heavy cav, and they're very affordable heavy cav with really good special rules and really good options. I think completely upgraded. The Orc, I would say the Orc Boar Boy would have been the best cav, and I think these guys easily overtake it. They have some special rules which make them just disgusting. They have Cathayan Cataphracts, Close Order, Countercharge, Horde, Swift Stride, and Will of the Dragons. We're going to dive into those in a second. Their stat line is the same as the Jade Warriors with a movement 7 Warhorse. Again, you get that Yang, Will of the Dragons, your movement 8, factors into your charge. Now, what does Swift Stride do? You take 2 dice for your charge, you roll it. You take the highest one and you discard that lower one, and then you roll another die and you take that and add that to your charge roll. Very nice, allows you to make a big charge, allows you to go and kind of get those guys in combat. Now, Countercharge. Countercharge is a really nice one. You can't do it against blocks of infantry, but you can do it against other cavalry. Now, Horde is going to allow you to add an additional rank bonus. I wouldn't suggest probably using it. I don't think anyone's going to benefit from that. You'd have to run a couple extra ranks of horses, and the most I would run is like 2 units of 5. But anyways, again, Will of the Dragons we covered, and Cathayan Cataphracts is gross. So when making a follow-up, that means when someone, I believe, falls back, you can choose to catch up with them. If you do that, you count as having charged the next turn. So you're going to get that extra strength bonus, that extra AP on those lances. Stack that with the Will of the Dragons, and you're in there. Pretty freaking disgusting. For a starting army, I suggested the Shungung Lord. Like I said, Shungung Lord's base level 2. So for a wizard, you get 2 spells, but you also have the minimum casting range. Upgrade that to a level 3 for 35 points. Get that 24 inches. Really good to have. You have a base 5-up ward. You do D3 plus 1 impact hits. And you get the countercharge special rule as well as fly 9 inches, allowing you to kind of keep your wizard within bubble of attacking. Now, this guy isn't someone you want to keep out of combat. You give him the blade of the fleet, get that +2 strength, that AP2, and then that 5-up regen. You're sitting there with heavy armor, because you can upgrade this wizard to have armor. Heavy armor, mounted, regen, ward save. Is just really survivable. And then on top of it, he's casting spells. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I think this is a great pick for a beginner army because it allows you to learn the magic phase. It allows you to have a survivable character. It allows you to experiment with different magical items. Now, if you want to, I'm sure you can convert out of the box if you don't have the money or you just are buying the starting box. You could take one of the Jade Warriors, go to a unit of 24 instead of 30, and convert some out of the bits with the Hellstorm Cannon or the Cannonball, and you can kind of mix your own character together and kind of make a Magistrate, which is like a cheap hero. Moving on. Add-ons. This is really simple. 1 to 2 Cathayan Sentinels and more cav. 0 to 1 unit of cav per 1,000 points. So you can have 2 units of cavalry in 2,000 point lists, giving you 20 horsemen because you want that extra rank of attacks. The Cathayan Sentinels with all those upgrades are really a no-brainer. The lanterns are really cool, but having to take a Magister as your warlord, I think to take one is a bit situational, and I personally like the Shungan a little too much to make my warlord, but that is all entirely subjective and up to you. So I'm going to leave you on this, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. The Cathay army is really great. I think they have some awesome looking models, a lot that you can do to paint. If you play 8th edition, you can do them in the Tamarcon campaign. Just saying, just throwing it out there, you know. What do I know? You know, my boy Tamarcon's always looking for people to chew up. Now, what have I been up to lately? Yeah, I've been just inundated with school. Funnily enough, I took a humanities course and learned about like ancient China, which has been really awesome. So, you know, covering the Archer parable where he takes out the ravens. It's kind of cool to see this artwork kind of mimic some of that, or Lady Di's funerary banner. I think all that stuff is really cool. And it was kind of something I've been wanting to talk about. Again, I try not to get in. I know it's probably not best for my channel, but I try not to get down on something when the hype is big, because I want to kind of get a feel for it myself, get my hands on it, get a look at it. And I'm glad I did. Cathay is an army where I think it's really awesome. I think if you've been on the fence and you like the look of it, or you're into the hobby, get down on it. What have you got to lose? I also think the starter set is probably one of the better purchases, because all you really need is a couple Sentinels and a character and you're done. The name characters I don't touch on a whole lot. There, you know, guys, you guys know me. I'm not big on the name characters unless I'm playing something really narrative. And then on top of it too, these guys really don't have any history, so there's no necessity for me to want to play them. So, but that's it. I am pressed for time. I'm going to get going. Everybody, I hope you're doing well. Tell me what you want to see next. I'm going to try and get a video out at least every other week on Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. Peace.